Hi, I'm Juliette Ferguson here with Sotheby's International Realty, and today I have Steve Vagnini with the County Assessor and Clerk Recorder's Office. We're in Monterey County, and we're going to talk about something that doesn't come up as often called the Mills Act for historical homes. And you're going to talk about maybe Monterey and what the Mills Act is.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions in the office about Mills Act. I get calls from realtors or people that I know that are interested in purchasing a home. And for an example, I'll give an example of a person who recently bought a home and were thinking of buying a house in Monterey.
Okay.
And but you're talking about in the millions of dollars.
Sure.
And so the property taxes would be very significant based upon 1% of the purchase price.
Of course.
So you're talking about a tax bill of $20,000–$30,000.
Right.
Well, this house, my friend realized that it was under the Mills Act.
Probably by the help of you, realized.
Well, they've heard, I think, from the realtor told them.
Good.
And
Good to
the
hear.
realtor wants to make sure, because it's very important when you're telling somebody, oh, this house is a
Absolutely.
Mills Act, you want to be 100%
Yes, for
sure
sure.
that that property tax benefit transfers to the buyer of the home. So, and it's pretty simple, straightforward. And the Mills Act is an act that was passed by the state. I don't have the exact figures. All that information is on the State Board of Equalization website, our website. But it was passed to help preserve older homes of historical significance. And the city of Monterey for many years has been on the forefront
Yes.
of the Mills Act. As well, I believe Carmel has implemented it, and County of Monterey to a certain degree, and some more than others. I think the city of Monterey has used it the most.
I've definitely seen it, and
Yeah.
then when you're searching for it in Monterey County, Monterey is
Yeah,
at
city
the
of
top of the
Monterey.
list.
So if there's a historical property and it meets certain conditions, it's on the National Historic Trust, and there's certain conditions that the city makes that determination. They enter into an agreement with the applicant, the owner of the property, and it's a 10-year agreement stating that you have to preserve that property. You cannot
You're saving
alter it.
money because you're supposed to use it to preserve.
And that theoretically is the money you're saving in property taxes. You should use it to preserve it. I don't know how they enforce that.
Right, right.
But the main thing is you don't want to turn it into a complete different type of property. You want to preserve that historical integrity of the property. That's the spirit behind the law. So
Is that mainly on the exterior?
that-
Or in the interior?
I don't know the answer to that. That's one of those tough questions
Right.
that would be a question for the city of Monterey, and it's probably in the details of the agreement.
Yeah, I would bet, because in the majority of historical homes, they're more concerned with the exterior, but the Mills Act might be more detailed and include more.
Yeah.
So we'll have to
So
investigate.
you enter into an agreement. It's a Mills Act contract, and then once that agreement is consummated, it's important. You have to record that document in the recorder's office.
And that is something people sometimes miss.
They sometimes miss. You have to let us
Just
know.
like funding a trust.
If we don't know about it, we cannot give you the benefit, and just because you didn't know you were supposed to do it, you have to know to do it. So it's important to record that document, but quite frequently, someone who sells a house and you buy the house, it's gonna run with the title. So it doesn't have to be re-recorded all over again. But you have to know how many years are left in the agreement. That's to find out from the city, how long is that Mills Act? Is it at the last 2 years?
And that's great information for
Okay.
realtors who want to find that out when they're advertising.
So then
to
the
sell a
next
house.
question is, well, how do we come up with our valuation of the property, of the Mills Act?
Good
value?
question.
And we base that upon an income approach to value.
Okay.
So we do the market rent of what, for example, what the house would rent for
Okay.
on the open market. And so say if it rented for $2,000 a month, average house, of course you can't find much in 2,000.
No.
So 2,000, let's say 2,000 for
Let's
simplicity.
say 7,000 a month.
7,000 a month. So that 12 months, $84,000 a year. And then you deduct certain expenses from that.
Okay.
What it would be to maintain the house.
Sure.
all the reasonable expenses, let's say $4,000 a year, then you would be left with $80,000. Then we capitalize that $80,000 based upon the state of California every year gives us different components that we build our capitalization rate and say, and it's usually a pretty high cap rate. It's a higher for property owned by an individual as opposed to when you're renting. Sometimes you have office buildings that may apply for Mills Act property as well. So it doesn't have to be residential. So then we capitalize that income. Then let's say $84,000 by a cap rate of 10. Your taxes are $840,000 as opposed to had you bought the house for $3 million, instead of paying $30,000 in taxes, you're paying $8,400.
There's quite a difference there.
Quite a difference.
You just calculated that very quickly. Very
And
impressive.
we review those values on an annual basis. The rents, you know, we look at the economic rent, not necessarily what it's renting for, but what it would rent for. And then we get different cap information from the state.
Very interesting. I've done cap rates only for investment properties, separate from that, so, but very similar the way you're, very similar in terms of getting the monthly but yeah, interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Steve Vagnini with the County Assessors and Clerk Recording Office, Monterey County. This is Jet Ferguson signing off.